I sat at my desk, staring blankly at the computer screen, the silence in our small apartment weighing heavily on me. The sound of Derek's laughter from the living room where he lounged in front of the TV grated on my nerves. My back ached from sitting too long, and my eyes burned from hours of work. I hadn't moved since breakfast. "Emily, when's dinner?" Derek called out, his voice breaking through my thoughts. "Soon," I responded, my voice barely audible even to my own ears. As I stood up, every muscle in my body protested, reminding me of the long, uninterrupted hours I'd spent at my makeshift home office. Entering the kitchen, the sight of the morning's unwashed dishes greeted me. I sighed and started preparing dinner, my mind replaying the conversation I had with Derek earlier. "It's just not fair," I muttered to myself. I couldn't understand why Derek expected me to handle everything at home just because I worked remotely. Doesn't he see how hard I'm working? My train of thought was interrupted by Derek entering the kitchen. "Hey, the bathroom sink is clogged. You'll fix it, right?" he asked casually, as if it was a given. I nodded, biting my tongue to keep from lashing out. It felt like my efforts were invisible to him, my job, the housework, his never-ending demands. Dinner was a quiet affair. Derek broke the silence with a casual bombshell. "I think my mom might need to stay with us for a bit. She's getting older, and it's tough for her alone." I stopped eating, my fork suspended in midair. "Stay with us? Derek, I'm already at my limit. How am I supposed to take care of your mom, too?" He just shrugged. "It won't be long. You're always home. You can manage." His words ignited a fire within me. "Manage? I'm not some robot, Derek. I have my limits." But he didn't seem to hear me. His attention had already shifted back to his phone, scrolling through social media, completely oblivious to my growing despair. That night, as I lay in bed, the feeling of entrapment was suffocating. Derek's disregard, his expectations, the constant undervaluing of what I do. It was all too much. Something had to change, but the question of how loomed large and unresolved in my mind. As sleep finally claimed me, a haunting thought lingered. I can't keep living like this. I woke up the next morning with a heavy heart, the dread of facing another day like the last weighing on me. The apartment was quiet. Derek had already left for work. As I brewed my coffee, the thought of his mother moving in with us lingered uncomfortably in my mind. Mid-morning, I received a text from Derek. "Mom's excited about the move. You'll do great taking care of her." The message felt like a punch in the stomach. I stood there, phone in hand, a mix of anger and helplessness swirling inside me. I tried to focus on work, but my thoughts kept drifting. By the time lunch rolled around, I was a bundle of nerves. Then, the doorbell rang. It was Linda, Derek's mother. "Hello, dear. Just thought I'd drop by to discuss the living arrangements," she said, stepping inside uninvited. As we sat in the living room, Linda began detailing her expectations. "I like my meals at specific times, and I prefer the house kept very clean," she stated matter-of-factly. I struggled to keep my composure. "Linda, I have a full-time job. I can't be at your beck and call all day." She looked at me, her expression a mix of surprise and disapproval. "But taking care of the family is a woman's job, dear. Derek is working hard. You should support him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The outdated notions, the blatant disregard for my work, it was all too much. "Taking care of the family doesn't mean neglecting my own needs and career," I countered, my voice firm. Linda scoffed. "In my time, we knew our priorities. It seems young women these days are too career-oriented." I was seething. This wasn't just about Derek now. It was a battle for my identity, my rights as an individual. That evening, when Derek returned, I confronted him. "Derek, this isn't going to work. Your mother expects me to be her full-time caretaker. I have my own life, my own career." Derek's response was cold and dismissive. "Emily, she's family. You're overreacting. Just make it work." "Make it work?" "Derek, I'm not a maid or a nurse. I'm your wife, and I deserve respect and understanding," I shot back, frustration boiling over. He just laughed. "Respect? You're not exactly bringing in the big bucks, Emily. Remember who's paying most of the bills here." His words were like a slap in the face. I realized then that Derek didn't value me or my contributions. I was just a convenience in his life, nothing more. That night, I lay awake, Derek's words echoing in my mind. The realization hit me hard. I was in a marriage where I wasn't valued or respected. Something inside me snapped. No more. I wouldn't be a doormat any longer. I made up my mind. I was going to fight back, reclaim my life. Derek had no idea what he had unleashed. The time for being the obedient, accommodating wife was over. It was time for action, time for retribution. The following days were a blur of resentment and planning. My job, once a source of pride, now felt like the only lifeline in my chaotic world. Derek's indifference and Linda's looming presence in our lives were suffocating me. One evening, while Derek was out supposedly working late, I decided to clean up his clutter in the study. As I sorted through a pile of papers, I stumbled upon a credit card statement that made my heart sink. The balance was alarmingly high, and the list of transactions revealed frequent visits to a nightclub downtown. I felt a chill run down my spine. How could Derek spend so much behind my back? And on what? Nightclubs. A surge of betrayal washed over me. I had been struggling to keep our finances afloat, and here he was, squandering our hard-earned money. The next day, I confronted Derek. "What's this about you going to nightclubs? This credit card statement is outrageous." Derek froze, his expression shifting from surprise to defensiveness. "It's for networking. Business meetings. You wouldn't understand." "Business meetings? At nightclubs? Do you think I'm a fool, Derek?" I could barely contain my anger. He scoffed. "You're overreacting, Emily. It's part of my job. I need to entertain clients." The lies and excuses were too much. Entertain clients? With our money? While I'm cutting back on everything to make ends meet? Derek didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Look, Emily, you wouldn't get it. This is how business is done. Just leave it to me." His dismissive attitude was the last straw. It wasn't just about the money or the nightclubs. It was his complete disregard for our partnership, for me. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, bank statements, credit card bills, anything that could show the extent of Derek's deceit. I needed to be prepared for what was coming. I was no longer the passive wife he thought he married. I was going to stand up for myself. And then it happened. A casual conversation with a colleague led to a revelation that turned my world upside down. Derek wasn't just spending our money on nightclubs. He was seeing other women. I felt numb. The betrayal, the lies, the financial deceit, it was all too much. Derek had made a mockery of our marriage. That night, I confronted him again, armed with the information I had gathered. "Not only are you wasting our money, but you're also cheating on me. Who are you, Derek?" His reaction was one of shock and anger. "You've been snooping around, spying on me." "Yes, Derek. I had to, and I'm glad I did." "I see you for who you really are now," I said, my voice steady but filled with disgust. Derek tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. He had betrayed me in the worst possible way. As he stormed out of the apartment, I knew that this was the end. But it wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the beginning of my journey to justice and retribution. Derek had underestimated me for the last time. The next morning dawned with a sense of grim determination for me. I had spent the night awake, planning my next steps. Derek's betrayal wasn't just a personal affront, it was a wake-up call. I was done being the victim. When Derek finally slunk back into the apartment, his face was a mix of guilt and defiance. "So you're just going to throw everything away over some accusations?" he sneered, trying to regain control of the situation. "Accusations? Derek, I have proof!" I countered, my voice firm. "You've been lying and cheating for who knows how long. This isn't just a small mistake. It's a complete betrayal of our marriage." He tried to interrupt, but I wasn't having any of it. "No, you listen to me for once. I've been carrying this relationship on my back, managing our finances, taking care of the house, all while you've been living a double life." Derek's face contorted with frustration. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just how men are. You're too sensitive." That comment was like a slap in the face. How could he be so callous, so utterly disrespectful? Just how men are. That's your excuse. I deserve better than a cheating, lying husband. Derek scoffed. "You think you can do better? Good luck, Emily. You won't survive a day without me." His words were meant to hurt, to belittle me, but they only fueled my resolve. "Survive without you? Derek, I've been the one managing everything while you've been out gallivanting. I don't need you. In fact, I'm better off without you." The look of shock on Derek's face was almost satisfying. He hadn't expected this side of me, the side that wouldn't back down. I continued, "I want a divorce, Derek. I can't be with someone who has so little respect for me, for our marriage. Derek laughed bitterly. Divorce? You think you can just walk away? We'll see about that. But I was resolute. Yes, we will see. And trust me, Derek, I'll make sure I walk away with what I deserve. As he stormed out of the apartment, I knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready. I was no longer the same woman Derek thought he had married. I was stronger, fiercer, and I was going to fight for my rights. This confrontation was more than just a clash. It was the moment of clarity I needed. It was time to take back control of my life, and that meant bringing Derek to justice. He had underestimated me for too long, and now he would see the consequences of his actions. In the days that followed, my resolve only grew stronger. The apartment felt like a prison, with every room echoing Derek's betrayal and lies. I began to meticulously plan my escape from this toxic environment. One evening, as I sifted through our financial documents preparing for the legal battle ahead, Derek barged in, his face twisted in anger. "You're really going through with this divorce nonsense?" he spat. I looked up, meeting his gaze with a calm I didn't feel. "It's not nonsense, Derek. It's the consequence of your actions." He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "You think you can just walk away and start over? Who do you think you are?" "I know exactly who I am," I replied steadily. "I'm someone who deserves respect and honesty, something you clearly can't provide." Derek sneered. "You'll come crawling back. You need me, Emily." His arrogance was astounding. "No, Derek, I don't. I've been taking care of myself in this household for years. I'll be just fine." As the days passed, I secretly began to pack my essentials. I contacted a divorce attorney and scheduled a meeting. I knew I needed to be strategic and precise if I was going to come out of this unscathed. The day I received confirmation of my legal representation, Derek confronted me again. "So you've got yourself a lawyer? You're serious about this?" "Yes, I am," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not going to let you walk all over me anymore. I deserve better." Derek's face contorted with rage. You think you can take me on? I'll drag this out until you have nothing left." But I was undeterred. "I'm not afraid of you, Derek. I've been through enough. It's time for me to stand up for myself." The day I left, I felt a mixture of fear and liberation. I took one last look at the apartment, a place that once represented love and companionship, but had become a symbol of deceit and heartache. As I closed the door behind me, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning." In my car, I called my lawyer. "It's done. I've left the apartment. We can proceed with the divorce." "Good," came the reply. "You're doing the right thing. We'll make sure you get what you're entitled to." Driving away, I felt a sense of empowerment I hadn't felt in years. Derek had underestimated me, but I was going to show him that I was not just a bystander in my own life. I was the protagonist, and this was my story of retribution. Now free from the suffocating atmosphere of the apartment, I found temporary refuge at a friend's place. As I sat in the quiet of the guest room, I realized the magnitude of what I had embarked upon. It was not just about escaping a failed marriage, it was about reclaiming my dignity and self-worth. My phone rang, breaking the silence. It was my lawyer. "Emily, I've started going through the financial documents you provided. There's a lot here that works in your favor. Derek's spending habits, the debts he's racked up. It's going to strengthen your case." I felt a surge of relief. "Thank you. I want to make sure he can't just walk away from this unscathed. He needs to face the consequences of his actions." My lawyer's voice was reassuring. "He will. We're going to make sure of it." In the weeks that followed, the legal proceedings began to take shape. I was determined to expose Derek for who he truly was, a deceitful, selfish man who had taken advantage of my trust and loyalty. During our first mediation session, Derek's true colors shone through. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Emily. We could have worked this out," he said, feigning a conciliatory tone. "Worked this out? After all the lies and cheating? You really expect me to just forgive and forget?" I countered, my voice laced with contempt. Derek's facade slipped, revealing his frustration. "You're just being vindictive now. Is this what you want? To drag us both through the mud?" "It's not vindictiveness, Derek. It's about justice. You can't expect to treat someone like you did and not face any repercussions," I replied, my resolve unwavering. As the legal battle intensified, so did Derek's attempts to sway me. He sent messages, oscillating between apologies and accusations, trying to manipulate my emotions, but I had seen through his charade. I was no longer the woman he thought he could control. Finally, the day came when the extent of his financial irresponsibility was laid bare in court. The judge looked over the records, his expression stern. "Mr. Thompson, can you explain these expenditures? Nightclubs, luxury items, trips, while your wife was managing the household on a tighter budget?" Derek stumbled over his words, his usual confidence faltering under the weight of his own deceit. I watched, a sense of vindication growing within me. This was more than just a divorce. It was a reckoning. Derek was finally being held accountable, and I was the architect of his downfall. As I walked out of the courtroom that day, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had stood up to Derek, faced him head-on, and emerged stronger. This was not just a battle for assets or alimony, it was a fight for my very identity. And I was winning. The days turned into weeks, and the divorce proceedings that I thought would be a marathon turned into a sprint. Derek, once so full of bluster and bravado, was crumbling under the legal scrutiny and the mounting evidence of his financial misdeeds and infidelity. During a particularly tense mediation session, Derek tried to play the victim. "You're ruining my life, Emily. All for what? Some misplaced sense of revenge?" I looked him straight in the eye, my voice steady. "This isn't about revenge, Derek. It's about justice. You lived a lie at my expense. It's only fair that you face the consequences now." His response was a mix of anger and desperation. "I made a few mistakes, sure, but you're taking it too far. You're going to leave me with nothing." "That's the point, Derek. You left me with nothing but lies and debt. Now, you get to see how that feels," I retorted. The legal battle was grueling but necessary. With each court appearance, with every revelation of Derek's duplicity, I felt a step closer to closing this painful chapter of my life. Then came the day of the final hearing. The courtroom was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the heated emotions that filled the space. Derek's lawyer made a final plea for leniency, painting him as a remorseful husband who had simply lost his way. But my lawyer was brilliant, methodically dismantling each of their arguments. She laid bare the extent of Derek's betrayal, not just in terms of our marriage, but also the financial havoc he had wreaked. When the judge finally spoke, his words were like a balm to my bruised heart. "Mr. Thompson, your actions have not only violated the trust of your marriage, but have also placed an undue financial burden on Mrs. Thompson. The court finds in favor of Mrs. Thompson in the matters of alimony and division of assets." Derek's face, once so arrogant, was now a picture of defeat. He glanced at me, but I looked away. I had no sympathy left for him. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt a sense of profound relief. The battle was over. I had stood up for myself and won. It wasn't just a legal victory. It was a personal triumph over the lies and manipulation that had once threatened to engulf me. As I stepped into the sunlight, a free woman, I realized that this was more than just karma striking back at Derek. It was a testament to my strength and resilience, a declaration that I was no longer a victim, but a survivor. The final gavel had been struck, and the divorce was now a reality. I stood outside the courthouse, taking in deep breaths of freedom. The journey had been arduous, but I emerged stronger, more resilient. I was no longer the woman who Derek thought could be easily subdued. In the weeks that followed, I began rebuilding my life. The financial settlement had been favorable, giving me a much-needed cushion to start anew. But it wasn't just about the money, it was about reclaiming my identity. I found a new apartment, a place that I could call my own, free from the memories of Derek's betrayal. Decorating it became a therapeutic process, each piece reflecting my renewed sense of self. One day, as I was enjoying a coffee in my new living room, my phone rang. It was a friend, curious about how I was coping. As we chatted, she mentioned Derek. "Have you heard? Derek's really hit rock bottom. He lost his job, and I heard he's been struggling to make ends meet," she said, a hint of disbelief in her voice. I paused, taking in the news. Part of me felt vindicated, knowing that Derek was finally experiencing the consequences of his actions. But there was no joy in it. His downfall was of his own making, a result of choices he had made. "Yeah, I heard something about that," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. "But I'm more focused on moving forward. I've got a lot to look forward to now." And it was true. The ordeal had taught me the importance of self-worth and the strength of my resilience. I had found a new job, one that I was passionate about, and I was making plans for the future. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the best form of retribution wasn't in reveling in Derek's misfortunes. It was in living my best life, in thriving despite everything he had put me through. In the months that followed, I flourished. I made new friends, excelled in my career, and even began dabbling in hobbies I had long neglected. The shadows of my past with Derek gradually receded, replaced by a bright future that I was the architect of. Looking back, I realized that this journey was not just about escaping a toxic marriage. It was a journey of self-discovery, of finding my voice and strength. Derek had tried to break me, but instead he became the catalyst for my transformation. I was no longer the same woman who walked into that courtroom months ago. I was stronger, wiser, and above all, free. Free to live, to love, and to pursue happiness on my own terms.